Shadows Between Us. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the city into a blur of gray lights and trembling reflections on the wet streets. Sarah pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders as she hurried down the empty sidewalk, her footsteps echoing softly against the silence of the night. Most of the shops were closed, their shutters rattling in the wind, but one small building at the corner still glowed with a faint yellow light. It was the old library. Sarah hesitated at the entrance. She had passed by it countless times, always curious but never brave enough to step inside. Something about it looked timeless, like it belonged to another century. Tonight, though, she felt strangely drawn to it, as if the storm itself were guiding her there. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, she entered. The warm air inside carried the comforting scent of old paper and ink. Rows of shelves stretched high above her, filled with books whose spines were faded with age. For a moment, she felt safe, hidden away from the restless world outside. That was when she saw him. A tall figure stood at the far corner of the library, his head bent over a book. His dark hair was damp from the rain, and the dim light traced the sharp lines of his face. He looked completely absorbed, unaware of her presence, until the sound of a book slipping from her hands hit the floor. He lifted his gaze. Their eyes met across the room. Sarah froze, breath caught in her chest. There was something unsettling in the way he looked at her, not threatening, but intense, as if he could see straight through her. I'm sorry, she stammered, bending quickly to pick up the book. The man crossed the room in a few quiet steps and picked it up before she could. His fingers brushed hers lightly as he handed it back. No need to apologize, he said in a low, calm voice. This one is heavier than it looks. Sarah smiled nervously. I guess I wasn't prepared. Most people aren't, he replied, closing the book with a quiet snap. For books, or for storms. The way he said it made her shiver. She didn't know if he was talking about the rain outside or something else entirely. I'm Sarah, she said, trying to break the silence that stretched between them. Suhaib, he answered simply, his eyes never leaving hers. The sound of his name lingered in her mind like an echo. For reasons she couldn't explain, it felt familiar, as though she had heard it before in a dream she couldn't quite remember. They stood there for a moment, the library around them whispering with the rustle of old pages. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, but inside, the only sound was the faint rhythm of their breathing. Sarah finally looked away, her cheeks warming. Do you come here often? Suhaib gave a faint smile, almost bittersweet. Only when I need to remember something. She tilted her head. Remember what? But he didn't answer. Instead, he gently placed the book back on the shelf, his movements precise, almost rehearsed. Then he glanced at her again, his expression unreadable. Some memories are better kept in silence. Before she could ask what he meant, the lights flickered, and the library fell into a brief darkness. Sarah's heart jumped, but when the lights came back, Suhaib was already walking toward the door. Wait, she called after him, though she didn't know why. He paused, his hand resting on the doorframe. For a heartbeat, it looked as if he might turn back. Instead, he said quietly, Be careful on nights like this, Sarah. Storms have a way of uncovering things we're not ready to face. And then he was gone. Sarah stood alone in the library, her pulse racing. She didn't know who Suhaib really was, but one thing was certain, this was not the last time she would see him. Something about him, something hidden in the shadows, was already pulling her deeper than she had ever imagined. For days, Sarah couldn't shake the image of Suhaib from her mind. Every street corner, every shadowy alley seemed to whisper his name. She returned to the library the next evening, hoping for another encounter. The night was cold and damp, the smell of old books comforting yet tinged with anticipation. As she wandered through the aisles, she noticed a journal lying on a table, one she was certain hadn't been there before. Its leather cover was worn at the edges. She opened it carefully, and the sharp, precise handwriting inside was unmistakably Suhaib's. Some secrets are heavier than the heart can carry, and some storms cannot be outrun. Sarah's heart raced. How did he leave this here? Was it meant for her to find? She read on. The entries revealing fragments of his life she could barely comprehend. Nights spent wandering the city, people watching him from the shadows, memories he could never forget. There were jagged sketches and cryptic symbols that made her stomach twist. A soft creak behind her made her spin, but the aisle was empty. Only the faint rustle of pages remained. "Hello?" she whispered. No answer. She tucked the journal under her arm and walked toward the door, feeling watched. Her pulse quickened with unease and excitement. At night, notes began appearing under her door, cryptic messages in familiar handwriting. "Do not trust the rain tonight. Some truths are closer than you think." Sarah returned to the library again, drawn by curiosity she could not resist. Footsteps echoed behind her as she entered, and there he was, Suhaib. His eyes held secrets too deep to be spoken. Sarah discovered a hidden door at the far end of the library, partially concealed by a tall bookshelf. She opened it, revealing a small room filled with papers, photographs, and journals, all tied to Suhaib's mysterious past. Clippings of crimes, sketches of faces, and maps of streets filled the walls. One photograph showed Suhaib with a blurred man who seemed threatening. "You shouldn't be here," Suhaib whispered as she held up the journal. I needed to understand," Sarah said. "I wanted you to stay away," he replied, running a hand through his damp hair. "These things, they're not meant for you. Understanding comes with a price." Sarah's fear mixed with intrigue, and despite the warnings, she felt herself drawn closer to him. "Trust me, Sarah," he said finally. "If you want to be near me, you must trust me completely. Can you do that?" Her heart pounded. I think I can." Suhaib nodded. "Good. Once you cross this line, there's no going back. Things you will see, things you will feel, may change everything." That night, they met at the abandoned bridge near the old mill, following another cryptic note. The wind whipped against them, the river below echoing the tension in the air. "I need to know the truth," Sarah said, stepping closer. "I want to be with you, even if it's dangerous." Suhaib hesitated, then brushed her hand lightly. "Feelings make people weak. Targets. I want to be your strength," she whispered. He leaned down, their lips meeting in a tentative kiss, sending a shockwave through both of them. The moment was fleeting but undeniable. Yet in the distance, shadows lingered, watchers unseen. Suhaib revealed fragments of his past, a life entangled with a secret group hunting criminals outside the law, betrayals that haunted him, and enemies now seeking Sarah because of her connection to him. Fear pressed against their hearts, but love bound them tighter. Sarah faced the choice, run and live in fear or trust Suhaib and fight alongside him. In the darkness, she reached for him, feeling the pulse of danger and desire intertwined. Together, they chose to face the shadows, realizing that love could become the only weapon strong enough to protect them. As the storm raged around the city, Sarah and Suhaib stood together, hearts beating in unison, knowing the night was far from over. Yet for the first time, they were ready to face it, side by side, shadows and all.